Hi guys, today we're going to learn how to frame a piece of embroidery that you've done, or any kind of cloth item that you may want to put a frame around. This I just picked up at the dollar store. It's nothing special. It just shows that any frame will work. It just really depends on what you're looking for. If you have frames that will match the rest of your decor. I personally have black frames all around my house. They don't really match, but they're all black. So that way I can pick up any standard cheap frame and it'll actually go along with all the frames that I have, be it expensive or cheaper. So basically what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to stretch this around a piece of foam board and then assemble it inside of the frame, just so you can get a professional look. And it's only going to cost a few dollars to get it done instead of taking it to an actual frame shop. I know that the price of framing is not cheap. I used to work at a frame shop, so I can actually show you how to professionally frame this. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to move our frame right out of the way. Our first step is we're going to want to make sure our foam board fits the actual frame. This is obviously a lot larger than what we're going to need, so I'm going to show you how to do that real quick. What we're going to do is you're going to take the back of the frame, and like I said, it was just a simple little dollar store frame, so it's not going to really matter what the back looks like too much, just because sometimes the foam board can be a lot thicker than the inside of the frame here. So it will stick out from the wall just slightly, but I'm okay with that just because I'm not going to have it on a wall that you're going to be walking past to look between the gap between the wall and the actual backing of this. So it'll be something that you'll only see face on, so that whole gap won't matter to me too much. That is something you might want to look for though when you are shopping for a frame. If it's going to be along a wall that you're going to be passing by or walking next to frequently, I do recommend going with a deeper frame. That's something you might want to put a little bit more money into, is the frame. But you can also find some really cool sales or clearance frames at Michael's or Joann's. They would have some really cool ones, maybe Hobby Lobby. Always check the clearance aisles whenever you go to a store if you're looking to frame something, because typically you'll find some really cool deals there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and line the long side up to the edge of the foam board. And you can get the foam board at like a Walmart, a craft store. I know frame shops have acid free. So if you're looking to frame something that's really old or something that's like a family heirloom, I do recommend maybe splurging on a little bit more expensive piece of foam board. You just go into the frame shop at your local craft store or local frame shop anywhere, ask if it's acid free, and then that way it won't discolor or yellow your item, especially if it's a white, because it will turn the fabric yellow over time. So what we're going to do is you can either take I just have one of my daughter's foam markers here. You can take a Crayola marker, crayon, pencil, pen, anything you have on hand that will help you draw a line here. We're just going to go ahead and trace this just like that, and you'll remove it, and then that's going to be our cutting lines, those black lines. That way you'll know exactly how big the frame is for the underside. And then we're going to go ahead and get this going. I have noticed in the past that scissors tend to be a little harder to cut the foam board just because of how thick it is. I do recommend more of a blade, an X-Acto knife, a razor blade, a box cutter. Those are going to be your best items to cut the foam board with. But if you don't have access to anything like that, scissors will work, but it will tend to crush the edge. I cut that in right there just so you can see what will happen. So just very carefully, slowly score that line. You're not making a deep cut. You want to go on the inside of the line. So you see there's the inside and the outside of the line. You'll want to just drag your blade on the inside of that line It doesn't have to be 100% straight. You're not looking for complete and total accuracy here, just as long as it comes close to what we're needing. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and flip this and do this on the other side as well. Okay, and then we're just going to pop our frame just right inside of there just to make sure it fits. Seeing if there's any more trimming that we might have to do. The pins to worry about, and also the fabric is also going to create some bulk. So, but we still want to make sure that it's covered by the lip of the frame. So you got the front of your frame, it hangs down a little bit here. So you want to make sure that your foam board still falls within this range here. Just that way it doesn't slip through when you go to put it back into your frame. We're going to go ahead and just, that looks like that'll work. Okay, so that's that. You're going to want to press or steam this or launder it however you'd like. If you have any stains on there you need to get rid of. Just very, very carefully take care not to damage any older embroidery projects. I know I've seen that happen where when I worked in the frame shop, I've had a few people take them home to press them and they used the wrong setting and completely damaged their entire project. Just please take care. There's a lot of tips online on how to launder older embroidery projects and items. Quilt squares, anything that's got fabric to it. Give this a good press and see if we can get most of these wrinkles out. Okay, so I went ahead and pressed it the best I could. When I made this project, I wasn't intending on doing an entire piece. I was just going to do the patch right there of Tina Belcher from Bob's Burgers. But I kind of just took it away. So my fabric is double layered, which is why it is puckering. But I'm still okay with it because it's not anything that, like I said, I'm not going to pass this down to my children. So it's not going to be a family heirloom, or at least I hope it's not going to be a family heirloom because that would be a little absurd. But anyways, so what I like to use is the applique pins because the heads on these pins, they I've seen people use dressmaker pins. I've seen people use the T-pins. I personally like these. Now, if you have a fabric that is more like, have more like openings, or the fibers are a little bit more spread apart, it's not going to work so much, and that's when you would want to use the T-pins. And those have just a piece of metal just laying across the top of it. Let me see if I can try to zoom in on this real quick and so I can show you. That's the type of pin that you're going to want to get. It's a little flat. It's flat on the top. That way it'll hold the fabric into place a little bit better, and it'll fit along the inside of the frame nice and flush. So what you're going to want to do, I always pull out just a few pins at a time into the lid, just so I'm not going to knock the whole thing over and make a huge mess. So what we're going to do is you're going to take your foam board here. You're going to make sure it lines up with your fabric. We're going to slide this in. You can kind of see through the fabric. If by chance you have a darker fabric, what you're going to want to do is just kind of fold it over the edges and shift it back and forth, applying just a little pressure because it's going to get stretched just slightly. So you want to make sure that it's not going to go right up to the edge, because then that would get covered by the part of the frame. Measure also, you would just put a pin in each spot where you're going to measure, and then you can adjust accordingly. So you would just slide a pin in there. I'm going to go ahead and Fold that over just slightly. Get our ruler here. That looks good. It looks like it's about 1/2 inch on each side. If you want to center it more, you can. It's basically the same thing. It's a lot of just shifting and placing. I'll go ahead and just move this up just slightly just so I can show you. Taking care not to shift it back and forth or to the left or to the right. You just want to make sure that you're getting a good fit on this edge, so that way the frame doesn't cover it completely. Go ahead and lay the frame back over if you like, just to kind of adjust it as you go along. Just remember, like I said, to make sure, because you're going to be pulling it slightly just to stretch out those wrinkles, and you don't want it one side closer to the frame than the other. So that actually looks really good. So we're going to go ahead and pin these into place. You're going to take one pin, you're just going to put it right in the middle, and you're going to push that in. That's going to be your starting pin. Then you're going to go ahead and do another pin right directly across from it, right on top. Push that pin in also. Right in the middle, kind of like a cross that we're going to do. Right in the middle. Stick that pin right in the side there. And then directly across from there, you're going to add that other pin. Okay? And that's what it's going to look like on the back. So you want to make sure your pins aren't going completely through your foam board. Okay, so this we're going to start just down on the bottom. We're going to fold that fabric over. We're going to give it a little tug, making sure that it's a little taut on there. And between that side and that side, so we're going to want to go kind of towards the bottom here. Just so we're going to hold this in place here. So it's just going to go right in there, and you want to make sure that you don't push it all the way in yet, because that's going to come for later. Directly across from it, pull that a little snug, just like that, and we'll add another pin towards the bottom. Okay, so now we're going to go all the way up at the top and do the same thing. We're going to pull that over on the side, push that pin in, and as you can see, it's already starting to stretch a little bit. I know the middle looks a little messy and not so put together, but we're going to fix that as we go along, so don't fear. I know it doesn't look like it's coming together yet, but it will, I promise. Just like the same before, that over, and I'm just holding it into place. Some people like to use acid-free tape. I would not do that at this point. At this point, or I would wait until the very end to tape any of the edges down. Turn this on its side, and we're going to fold that top part down. See how I kind of move that a little bit? Just a nice good amount of pressure. You don't want to over pull, because then it'll super stretch everything out of place. Insert that pin, and we'll do it on the same side here. Flip it over and do the same. It looks like it's coming together a little bit, but it's still not completely there, because this needs to get pulled some more. Like what we did down here, we're going to give it just another slight little tug just around the back. We're going to fold that around. Between this pin and this pin, we're going to place one right in the middle, just like so. And we're going to do the same to the other side, making sure you don't pull it too far over. If by chance you're seeing that you are coming, because the edge is right here, if you pull it too far over, then that's going to stretch it back this way. So I see that I might have pulled it a little too far the one way, so we're going to pull that back, remove the pin, and insert it again right into the spot. Okay, that around the edge. If at all, at any time you're questioning if I'm pulling this too far, is this getting tugged a little too much, is it shifting too much, you please put your frame back over here. It'll make your mind at ease and just see where it's lining up at. Of course, we're still having some wrinkles because we're not completely finished yet, but so far to me it looks pretty good. It looks decent, and there's still some wiggle room in the back, so when we go to put the back on, it's still gonna hold its place, and we can shift it around just to make sure that it lines up just how we want it. So go ahead and put that down, and then we're going to do the same. See, and I goofed here, and there we go. Work our way up towards the top and do the same thing. Just keep repeating this process until we get all the way around. Okay, and it looks like it's starting to take shape now. We've got just a couple more wrinkles that over time all of those will work itself out. Continue. We're going to start back down here at on this bottom corner here, and you're just going to keep going. And in between these two pins, you're going to put another one right in the middle. Make sure you're applying just a little pressure towards the back, pulling it down. You don't want to over pull it like I was saying before. It still could shift your project if you give it too much of a tug on there, but it will straighten out that fabric for you. Get a nice clean crisp look here. I'm just going to keep going. Okay, so now you're going to have these gaps, so we're going to go back through and repeat the process, putting a pin in the middle of each of those gaps. We're just going to keep going until we get all of our little wrinkles out. I got just a few more here, just around the edges. You want to keep going until you are satisfied with how flat it is. You don't have to overpin it. If this is the look that you're wanting, you can stop here. To me, there's just a few more wrinkles that I'd like to get out before we go ahead and put everything in there. So we're going to go ahead and do one more round. So here, if you're needing to adjust any of the fabric, if you maybe shifted it a little too far over for your frame to pick up, now would be the time to take out any pins that you need to readjust your fabric. I have been known to do a project like this for several hours, just not being able to line it up correctly just because the image and the fabric was too small. You can, if you had just the Tina here, I'll just show you what I'm talking about here. I know it's a little difficult with this paper, but let me see if I can get this right on the edge. So if you just had a small image and you were wanting to put a larger frame on it, that would be awesome also. It'll give it more prominence, it'll make it feel a little bit more special. Something like that I would definitely do for a family heirloom. Maybe a great grandmother had stitched just a little something when they were a child. This is definitely an idea that you can do. It's the same process. Just make sure your fabric is large enough. That is the only thing that I do seriously recommend when you're working. If you're going to be doing something brand new, do not cut your fabric too small, because you could always cut your fabric down once it's pinned or mounted onto the foam board. It's just really hard to stretch an item if the fabric only comes to like here. So I mean, that's just another idea. There's lots of different ways. If you were wanting to get a smaller frame, you can do that as well, and just make that just a little piece on a shelf or mantle or something like that. That would be really cute also. This is an option that is really a preference for you to make, if you want glass on the front or not. You're going to want to make sure that you have some kind of a separator between the glass and your item. The glass sometimes it's not going to be archival quality, so if it's a antique item, you definitely want to make sure there's some kind of spacer on the underside of here. If it's another strip of like foam dots, you can put some foam dots here just to raise it above or away from the glass, just to keep it separated. But then again, you're going to want to make sure that your frame is a lot deeper than this one. This one I don't necessarily need the glass on. Let me show you real quick. With the glass in there, it took up half of the room with the lip on the frame. So this is definitely going to be something that's going to be hanging over now. It's not going to fit in there very secure. So that's how much is going to be sticking out if I was to choose to put the glass in. I don't need it on there just because it's not a high quality piece. I'm not too concerned about it. It was just something I did for fun. So I'm not going to use the glass on my item. If you're wanting to preserve yours a little more, definitely take care and buy a little bit more of an expensive frame. Get the spacers. Go to a frame shop, see if they have anything. It's just going to be a thin piece of plastic with adhesive on one side. You're going to go ahead and cut it down to fit the inside of your frame all the way around. And then that'll definitely, you apply it right to the glass, and that will keep your image off of the glass, and it won't press it up against the glass to destroy over time your art piece. And it'll help with airflow circulation on the inside to just make sure that everything is kept nice. So without the glass in here, let me show you how it does. It still sticks out just slightly, but nowhere near as bad. So it does stick in like that. So what we're going to go ahead and do, I have double-sided tape that I'm going to use for this project. Just standard scrapbooking tape. Use double-sided tape. If you have just access to a single-sided tape, do not use masking tape, please. You can if it's a project you don't care about. If it's a project you love and cherish, do not use masking tape. It will destroy your fabric. It will yellow and harden over time, and it will just completely damage your fabric. So don't use masking tape. This is a big no-no. Make sure any tape that you use is acid-free. If it's something that you want to keep. This I just picked up at Michael's. I think it's called Tear Along, or something. I can't remember exactly the name of it. It's Tear something. It comes in, and you get quite a few yards with it, and it was just maybe like $5 or so. So go ahead and just fold that down like that. Now, so that's what it'll look like once it's taped down. There is some tapes that is acid free, and it looks like the masking tape. If that's what you're going to use, you would just fold this down, and then you would just tape it, half of the fabric on one side of the tape, and the other half on the actual foam board, just to tape it down so it's not going to be in the way when you go to put the backing on your frame. We're going to do the same on this side here. Do a finished corner, and you just stick a pin into the fabric there. That'll hold it down a little bit. There you go, just like that. That's something that I would do in the frame shop. It secures that corner, so it's not going to be in the way when we go ahead and put the backing on our project. So that's going to be your finished look, the backing on it. No one's going to see it, so it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. You just want to make sure everything is tucked into place. Just that way, when we go to put backing on, it's not going to be in the way. So, put that into our frame. If you're putting your glass in, go ahead and do that first, and then put your piece right on top of there, just like that. Okay. Make sure everything's lined up. And if you have brackets that are attached to your frame, you go ahead and just fold those over, one on each side, just to hold it into place. I know some craft stores have little fasteners that you can hammer into your frame. You can do that as well if that's what you're needing to use, if your frame didn't come with any kind of back. I know that some craft stores sell those open backed frames, so it won't have any kind of backing whatsoever on there. Okay, so there's that. And now we're going to need to put some kind of backing on here. So what we're going to do is, now this really just depends on, like I said, what kind of frame you have. Now, if these fasteners would no way hold that back on this, just like that. We're going to line this whole thing with double-sided adhesive, and it's going to give it a nice secure fit on there. Pull that down. And then here you want to make sure you get your top. Make sure it's always facing up. That way when you go to put your back on, you can see which way you're going to do that. Go ahead and give that a nice press, and that's going to stick to all the fabric, all of the foam board. Just make sure you don't snag your hand on that. Give it a nice cut. Okay, and then there you go. You can finish this up if you have acid-free tape to lay along the edge, just to seal it a little bit more to your frame. If you have the acid-free paper, you could also line the back of your frame here. So let me show you how to do that real quick, and I'll just use a piece of scrapbook paper. Let me see if I can find something fun here. Let me show you how to put actual paper on the back also. So if you're not going to use your back, you don't need to worry about adhering this back to it, this back piece. But this is just going to be, it's acid-free paper, it's scrapbook paper, it's good quality. So let's see here. So what you do is you take your double-sided tape, line your frame, just like so. Okay, you're going to line this edge up with this edge right here. So that way it's not overlapping, but you're still going to get a good finish to it. So you line that all the way down, just like that. And repeat the process all the way around. Take your paper. You're going to make sure that you get the paper lined up. If you have any creases, or if your item is a little bit larger than the backing, like if it's sticking out, you want to make sure you're very careful not to bend or rip your paper. It'll fold into place. So you go ahead and just press it right on down to that tape, giving it a good chance to adhere all the way around. And it's okay if you're getting that overhang. I'm going to show you how to take care of that. You're just going to give it a little cut just so you know where to start your blade. Lightly run your blade along the edge of the frame. If it snags, it's okay. You can go ahead and readjust. Place a ruler. I recommend using a smaller one than this though. One that you have control over. Just place it right on the back of your project here, and you're going to just run your blade, and not gouging your frame, but you'll run your blade just into your frame slightly. That'll cut the paper, and then you'll be able to peel that off. You just score it a few times, and that should do the trick. You shouldn't have to do it more than that. Peel that off, and that'll give you a nice clean look. Now that we got that edge cleaned up, we'll go ahead and repeat the process all the way around. All right. So now there you have it.